Hi folks, this is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. I wanted to discuss something which really came home for me the last few days, especially today, but really over the last couple of weeks. And perhaps you have noticed it too where you live. And if so, please leave a message in the comments section right below this video saying so. I've been trying to find out information on it to see if this is at least something which is a national phenomenon, if not a global phenomenon. The place where I generally hang out, even though I live in Mission, Texas, I'm only a few blocks from McAllen, Texas. I hang out in the Convention Center Parking District, which is a place of restaurants and shoe stores, clothing stores, and so on. And the last few weeks, I've noticed something very strange, that a lot of the places, especially the restaurants, but not only the restaurants, have been shutting down. This one restaurant I used to go to, which is primarily a vegan and vegetarian restaurant, although they do serve some meat products, is gone. There is another restaurant which I don't go to that much, which is also gone. And I just drive around and I just see this thing happening all over the place. Today, I went into an ice cream and cupcake shop in the same shopping district, and I was chatting with the guy who is the proprietor, the owner. I wouldn't exactly call him a friend because I don't know him that well, but I would call him a close acquaintance. And we talk, and he's a really nice guy, very, very friendly, very outgoing person, the kind of person I think anybody would like. And I asked him, I said, you know, that vegetarian restaurant which was right next door to you is shut down. And I've noticed that same thing is happening all over this place. And he said, yeah. I suspect that he is, I wouldn't necessarily say a right-winger, but perhaps somewhat to the right, in that he blamed it on President Biden. But if I am right, it has nothing to do with President Biden. President Biden does not control the global economy. President Biden does not even control the economy of this country. People tend to blame presidents for things like that, but presidents have very limited ability to fix or to change the course of economies in their countries. Same thing is true with prime ministers. So I would not blame the problem on President Biden. What I think is happening, and I was chatting with my neighbor about this after I got home, is that the war in the Middle East, combined with the earlier war in Ukraine, between Russia bombing and fighting Ukraine, that those two things, but primarily the war in the Middle East, has resulted in a dislocation, a period of economic uncertainty that has led to this thing of these restaurants simply closing. And it's a tragedy because obviously that's how people make money. These aren't wealthy capitalists. This guy who owns the restaurant, he built it from the bottom up. He hires some people to work there for him. He says that they generally don't last that long. Well, that's typical of low-end restaurants, fast food restaurants, whatever. But he says it's been even worse, that he will hire somebody he will explain to them exactly what their job is, which is something he said he didn't used to do. He would just assume that they knew it. He no longer makes that assumption. And maybe they will last 2 or 3 days and either just stop coming without calling him or quit. So just a month ago, this guy had 3 people working for him in the restaurant. Now he has none. It's just him. And I said, so what do you think you'll do? He said, well, I could relocate the restaurant, but I'm not sure if that would make any difference. He said, I suspect that the same problems that I have here, I would have elsewhere. Now, he blamed part of it on the location. I'm somewhat skeptical of that. This is a really nice, I would call it an upper end shopping district, very attractive, really, really nice restaurants, some rather expensive, to be honest, and I honestly, I tend to eat at the more expensive ones, but I don't think that's the problem. The more expensive restaurants seem to be doing fine. It's the lower end ones that are not doing that well. So I think that it's I don't think the problem is the location where his ice cream and cupcake shop is. I think it's just a general problem with the global economy. The Near East is obviously a very profitable section of the global economy. A lot of money is there to be made. You know, we in the United States talk about petrodollars all the time, and that is one of the global centers for petrodollars. Now, of course, the United States produces its own petroleum now too, which was not true in the past. But still, the Middle East is a very important place for the production of petroleum or oil products. And since this war started, with Gaza basically being leveled, if you've seen any of the photographs, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, and you have a strong stomach, I would urge you to do so. Open up Google Earth and just look at Gaza. If you can find some way to compare that with how Gaza looked just a few weeks ago, do that too. There is literally no comparison. Gaza today and Gaza yesterday are 2 entirely different places. And Benjamin, aka Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, doesn't seem to care. He doesn't seem to care at all. He is talking now about occupying Gaza for a long time. That is not, in the view of many other people, sustainable. Now, I am not a Near East expert, so any comments I make, and I could certainly make some, would not really have that much standing. But I have listened to plenty of them, and they all seem united in that view that Israel simply cannot occupy Gaza without facing serious repercussions from the global community. What has happened already is, for the first time in over 1,000 years, over 1,300 years, since the founding of the religion of Islam, Sunni and Shia, who have, well, maybe I was going to say have been at each other's throats. That may be an exaggeration, although that's happened from time to time. But at the very least, in general, Sunni and Shia have denied each other's legitimacy within Islam, basically saying that the other is not true Islam. Much of that is now being thrown out the window. And when Muslims, not only in the Near East but in other predominantly Islamic countries as well, see all of these people in Gaza, not all of them, of course, are Muslim. There are some Christians. There are even some Jews who were there before the founding of the State of Israel, who have been there a really long time. When they see that these people are being killed, especially the Muslims, it's like all of a sudden that distinction between Sunni and Shia no longer matters, or no longer matters that much. And so there's, I would call it a kind of collective heartbreak for what is happening to the citizens of Gaza right now. A feeling that, my goodness, look at these people, these poor, defenseless people who are being punished for a crime that they did not commit. Certainly Hamas, what it did, you could argue that was a crime. Certainly the response by Israel to what Hamas did is disproportional. I think most people would agree with that. Most, not all, but most. And so I really don't know where this thing is going to end. Israel is now talking about expanding the war, again about staying in Gaza, occupying it, possibly like expanding it to Lebanon, expanding it to the West Bank. And Iran has said that if Israel expands the war to the West Bank, that it will become involved. Now, what can Iran do? Not much. Not much. Now, they can try. They can send ground forces to attack Israel, but they would be defeated. Any attempts to attack Iran by air because of the Iron Dome would also be defeated. The anger that is being expressed by so many Muslims, what does it mean? I mean, what can they possibly do? Israel is still, to this day, receiving money from the West, primarily the United States. The second largest contributor to Israel, for understandable reasons, is Germany. Many people don't know that. Obviously, Germany feels guilty, and that's certainly understandable. But Israel is profiting from all this. Bibi Netanyahu is profiting from all this. Now, his poll numbers have been going down, but not for the reason that you might think. Not because he is killing all of these Palestinians, but because he allowed the Hamas attack on Israel. Allowed maybe is not the right word. He did not have his defenses set up properly for the Hamas attack on Israel. And so people are blaming Bibi Netanyahu now, too. Now, will that affect him? I don't know. Benjamin Netanyahu was the longest serving prime minister in Israeli history. This is now his third term in office. I mean, that's very odd. He is far right, but he is not as far right as some. There are many other people in Netanyahu's coalition who are much further to the right than he is. So I don't know where this goes. I started out talking about the economic problems that I've noticed around this area. Those are repercussions. The fact that I can't find a nice restaurant that I used to go to, that vegetarian, vegan restaurant, so what? Who cares? You know, I'll get by. There are actually 2 other branches of that same restaurant in other parts of McAllen. So if I really want to go to that restaurant, I would have to drive a little bit further, but big deal. I will be okay. I'm not going to be living in occupied territory. I will be alive. Can't say that for the Palestinians. And so I have this deep concern for them. If I were still Jewish, a secular Jew, and whether I am still Jewish is debatable. Obviously, I was born into a Jewish family, as I've said before. My parents were both Ashkenazi Jews. I'm a Brit Milah, meaning I went through the covenants of circumcision. I was also a bar mitzvah at 13. But a year after I received my bar mitzvah, I left Judaism and never went back. Now, does that mean I hate Judaism? No. I love Judaism, especially the teaching of ethical monotheism, which continues to inform and brighten my life. So it's not Judaism that I oppose. What I do sympathize with is the Boons movement. Abraham Weisfeld, a Jewish fellow from Montreal, Canada, is now getting ready for a trial for having the nerve to write Free Palestine. I guess that was graffiti on a Zionist sign. How many people are tried for graffiti? I've never heard of that before. I could see maybe being fined, maybe. I could see it being a civil case where the people who own the sign sue him. Okay, fine. Go ahead and sue him. Go ahead. But this guy is under criminal charges for doing this. And I know him, or knew him. I haven't had contact with him recently. But I feel so bad for him. And as one of the leaders of the Boons movement, which is an anti-Zionist Jewish movement, he has been in the crosshairs of so many negative forces. So, no matter what happens to the economy of the Rio Grande Valley in Texas, no matter what happens to the economy of the United States or the economy of the first world, the industrialized world, all of those things are relatively inconsequential compared with the daily struggle of living in a place, Palestine, which is constantly being bombarded by Israeli bombs. and nothing, literally nothing, can be done. In fact, Biden just sent Israel even more money. How shameful. How utterly shameful. And that's why his poll numbers are going down. And indeed they should. So, again, what to do? I wish I knew. If I had a solution, I guess I would make a lot of money. I could become a consultant and make a lot of money on it. Unfortunately, I don't. All I know is that my heart is broken over this horrendous situation. The fact that the economy of this area and perhaps of the world is suffering to some extent. Okay, that's sad. I feel bad for anybody who might be hurt by it. I feel bad for the people I know, like this person who owns that ice cream and cupcake shop. Certainly I feel bad for them, and for him in particular. But this whole world, this first world, just seems to be on a nosedive down to nowhere. It's like a nosedive down to Death Valley. And with no parachute. With no parachute. And I don't know what that will lead to, but I hope that it leads to the eventual end of the first world, and that the third world will rise up and will begin the process of establishing communism around the world. This has been Mark, by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.